everybody. Come on in, come on in. Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk with Maggie and Lucy, where we believe the older women should teach the young, just like the late, great Kevin Samuels told us to do. We like to come on here from time to time with you all and give you all our reaction to things affecting modern relationships from our combined 40 years of marriage experience. So Lucy, greet the people and let us know, what are we reacting to today?
Hi, Maggie. Hi, everyone. Yes, this is going to be an interesting one because it talks about the different way we see dating, how women see it and how men see it. And again, we generally, our channel, we talk about those two perspectives. We usually talk about the perspective of older women looking at the dating environment and the modern world as it is today. And he focuses on how men look at the dating environment and experience in a totally different way.
Absolutely. So we are going to be reacting to a Dr. Orion Taraban video. Thank you again, Dr. Orion, for letting us use your content. This one is called The Spark, Dating for Feels. Now, if you all don't know, Dr. Orion, he is an actual psychologist. We are not. We just have lived experience. But he is an academic, and this video, it's a little bit of a tough one, so I'm going to pause it and try to explain it, hopefully in a way that breaks it down for all of us, because I had to listen to it a couple times. It's not too long. This one is only 9 minutes and 45 seconds. Your two disclaimers, as always, I've linked the video in the description, so if you want to watch it without our commentary, feel free. And then secondly, Lucy and I are here for the young women who want to prioritize marriage and family in their prime years. If you want to do something else or that's not your priority, that's totally fine. We just can't help you. All right. So come on in, everybody. We love to know what you think. You can put it in the comments and we will bring you up on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and share and let's see what Dr. Orion Taraban has to say.
Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is the spark. In the context of dating, many people, especially many young people, are chasing the spark, which is essentially another way of talking about the desire to experience limerence, butterflies, chemistry, vibing. By any other name, the spark is a certain quickening in the blood in the presence of a certain someone. And since most people go to relationships in order to feel, when folks don't feel a spark by a certain point in the courtship process, they're often liable to move on to other options, even in the absence of any other liabilities. And I'm of a mixed mind with respect to this.
All right, I really want to stop here and unpack this one. So you all heard him call it the spark. I call it butterflies. The young people call it vibing. But did you hear him when he said at a certain point in the relationship? So ladies, I would ask you to ask yourself, do you expect to feel butterflies like in the very beginning? Does it need to start off fiery hot? You've got this passion for each other. Are you one of those that's like, you know what, let's see where this is going. You know, I didn't really notice you at first, but, you know, maybe there's something here. Those of us who have been in long relationships or marriages, yes, there may be that initial flash in the pan, but that slow burn that stays with you over decades, that comes in time. And did you hear him when he said a lot of times when people don't get that spark at the point in the relationship that they expected, they may move on for no other reason except for that spark is not there. Now, I've heard women say, I don't want to date anybody I'm not attracted to, or some of y'all know you got a thing for the bad boy or the fast girl or whatever it is. But really ask yourself, you know, irrespective of who you're in relationship with, and you can look at your past, have you been driven by that spark? And how has that helped you or hurt you? What would you add, Lucy?
Yes, and as someone that's been married a total of 31 years, you know, thinking of my two marriages, my second marriage for 20 years, my first marriage for 11 years, that spark it just doesn't go forever. So it's something that you young women that are thinking about having a long, marriage, think about it. It's not always going to be about butterflies and, everything, a prince comes riding on the horse to save you. There are times, I have said before, that life for the most part is going to be uneventful. And that is okay, because that is what the man brings you. They bring stability. They bring just a balance in life. Life is not always about going up and down. We women with our hormones and other issues are the ones that go up and down. Our men are the ones that keep us in that stability mode.
Yeah, I see you all in the chat. Some of you don't expect the butterflies, or you're going to even saying that initial interest doesn't have anything to do with butterflies. I'm not going to tell you how you're supposed to feel. You like who you like. But I will say this, ladies. Lucy brings up a good point about everyday life is uneventful. And when you get our age, that becomes a comfort to you, that consistency. A lot of women who are out here as professional daters, the problem is you become addicted to the spark, almost like you need a hit of it. And you go from man to man or woman to woman or whatever you're doing, chasing that spark, just like you're chasing a high. And it's never going to give you that insatiable feeling. Yes, you're going to like each other. Some days you may not like each other, but that slow burn to me is more important than the spark. And I still have butterflies after 30 something years, but just be careful about that and ask yourself, how has that helped you or not? All right, let's go back in to Dr. Orion.
On the one hand, I generally don't think it's worth being in a sexual relationship with someone you feel nothing for, especially at the beginning of a courtship. On the other hand, however, true affection is only cultivated over time, and that is way more important to the success of a long-term relationship than the fleeting feeling of limerence. But let's talk about the spark anyway, because telling people that it shouldn't matter probably isn't going to change anything. One way to think about the spark is in conjunction with attachment styles. Whether we like it or not, we all carry a certain template inside of us with respect to how sexual relationships are supposed to look and how they're supposed to feel. And this template is largely based on observing the relationship or relationships of your primary caregivers during your childhood. This observation seems to be a kind of instinct, in that the creation of such a template is both unconscious and inevitable. And this kind of sucks, because it takes at least another 2 decades for people to begin to become aware of their templates and to respond to them as necessary.
Okay, so I want to break this one down a little bit because, like I said, Dr. Orion is an academic, and sometimes I struggle like, okay, what did he just say here? So he said, all of us have a template, which means you have been imprinted whether you know it or not. He said for often it's unconscious. So the way we were raised, what we saw growing up, demonstrated to us, good or bad, has left a mark on us. It has left an imprint on us. Now, of course, when you're an adult, you get to go out and make your own decisions. But your first example of what a relationship is what you saw before you experienced it. That's why, to me, it's so important that we keep the intact family, because if not, we're just putting more people out into the world that have no idea what a real relationship looks like over years of working together. All right. So again, ladies, this is for us to learn and get better. You have to be introspective and ask yourself, what did I see growing up? Were mom and dad together? You all remember Kevin Samuels often used to ask that. But if they weren't, this is not about being shamed about what you had or didn't have, because you had no control over this. But it really is about having an awareness that this impacted me. So I am going out into the world with a certain bias. either hoping the best of, reproducing the love that I saw growing up, hopefully, or being skeptical of people because all I heard or saw was my mom or whoever, go through failed relationship after failed relationship, or thinking somebody is going to, cheat on me or, abandon me, or all these things that he calls an attachment style. Now, again, I'm not a psychologist. I don't even really get into that whole, emotional kind of, psychology stuff, because that's not my area of expertise. But I can understand that we do have a certain disposition to what is normal to us. Emphasis on the us. So now when you go out there, you are comparing everything you experience, whether you know it or not, with what has been imprinted on you as the template. All right, what would you add, Lucy?
Yes, and I can tell you when he was talking about that, I remember I was thinking about my mom and dad. My mom is the extrovert, my dad is the introvert, and it's also in your DNA. I have my dad's complete personality. I am the introvert we are 4 girls and 1 boy. Out of all the girls, I'm the introverted one. They want to go out and they go dancing and they're Maggies. Imagine 4 Maggies in the house and one that wants to stay back here saying, this is too much for me. So again, it's one of those things that it's also part of who you are. And that's when you're dating, you have to be making that analysis. Is his personality, are we in sync with our personalities? Because if you have one really introverted person with one very extroverted person, that's going to cause some some adjusting for personalities. I'm lucky that my husband is more introverted and less. He's very extroverted when he has to be in business environment and all of that stuff. But when he gets home, I am his peace, because he loves to be just quiet and just not want to go out there after work, want to go dance or want to go do all of these things that really, it's not in me. And it's not in him. But if I were my mom or my sisters, knowing that he's coming back home and having an event planned, it's probably something that's probably going to be very stressful for them. So again, that imprint, you start watching, who is the more extroverted one in the relationship between your mom and dad, and you start learning on how they manage those situations as you grow up.
Absolutely. I see what you all are saying in the comments. So again, ladies, this is about awareness, a big part. Kevin Samuel said this before he passed. Self-awareness is sexy. Now, I'm not going to say what's sexy or not, but it is really important, especially as women, that we move through the world with intention and know how we are showing up. And Lucy is right. Some of it is biology. You all know I put the extra in extrovert. I am the one who had to take peace lessons. You got to pay me to stop talking. But I have somebody who can say, you know what, just sit down, just stop. You're doing too much. All right. I know that's what I need. So you have to know how you show up, but also you have to know what you've seen as far as relationship. And that's what you think is normal. So you may always be trying to get back to what's normal to you, but is that the right thing? All right, let's go back in.
In any case, if the template is unconscious for most people, how are they to make use of this information in order to navigate through life? Enter the spark. The spark is a kind of signal that the unconscious mind has observed a match between a given stimulus and its relevant template. Think of it as a way to notify you that a pattern of which you may not even be conscious has been recognized. And this is why the spark can feel so intense. The spark contains a strong impulse to approach because the unconscious mind perceives an opportunity to recreate the templated dynamic that was impressed upon you in childhood, which, for better or worse, your mind believes constitutes.
All right, he said a mouthful there, but I just want to really unpack what he said. I don't know if you all heard that. So we've agreed and we have established that we all have some type of imprint, some type of template, whatever we saw, whatever was normal to us. And because human nature is to stay alive, I know modern people are like, oh, I don't need a family. I don't need anything. I can do it by myself. Fine. This doesn't apply to you. But our DNA, our hard wiring is, I want to create more of me. And so you're going to try and recreate by what has been demonstrated as this is what works. So that's what I need to do. So what he said is when we feel that spark, that unconscious spark with somebody, whoo, I got a thrill for him. It's connecting you to what was imprinted on you. Now, if that was a great, healthy relationship, you're winning. But my impetus is for women to understand that you may have the feels, you may have the draw, you may have the, the tingles, you may feel that spark for someone that is going to take you down a path that is not helpful for you, but that is what your wiring is telling you. Well, I got here through that, so that must be what's normal. And so if you're finding yourself being attracted to the wrong type of person, you don't know why, this man is no good for you, but you keep time and time again falling for the same thing, maybe this is information that can help you course correct. What would you add, Lucy?
Yes, and if you're in a relationship already that is allowing you to be self analyze and take a look at, this is a good man, this is a good relationship, this is something that I want my kids to learn from, cherish it, foster it, because again, if you didn't learn that from your own looking at your mom and dad for whatever reason, now it's time for you to change that environment and make it better for your offspring.
All right, let's go back in.
After all, you were the successful outcome of that dynamic. So from the perspective of evolution, it couldn't have been that broken, could it? Though the number seems to be dropping, according to recent estimates, the good news is that around half the people in the world are securely attached. And this means that they generally grew up within stable, loving, and intact households. And since that is what they observed as children, that is typically their template for romantic relationships. Like on some level, they can't even conceive of a relationship not looking like that, which is why securely attached folks can be so charming in their naivete. In any case, when these folks are out and about and they encounter someone who seems to fit the pattern encoded in their unconscious relationship template, then they are liable to feel some kind of spark. Hooray! If they are looking for a long-term relationship, this feeling might be fairly reliable. Their template is like a compass that points true north. So it might be worth listening to.
Okay, I'll skip ahead in just a moment. But he covered a little statistic there. About half of the people, I guess, out here in the dating market, which to me sounds generous, come from some type of healthy, securely attached template, if you will. And when he was talking, what it reminds me of, and I know we talk a lot about single mothers here. This is not to bash anybody, but I remember there was, I don't know, there was a principal or something that asked like little girls what they wanted to be when they grew up. And the comment was, about, just me and my kids. And it wasn't even the thought that there was a husband involved, that there was a man in the picture. And this is the problem, that when we perpetuate this, oh, it's okay, or make excuses for it when it is the least advantageous choice for everyone involved. Yes, I said it. You cannot raise a child by yourself. We imprint our young ones to think not only that can they do that, but they should do that. And so the same thing applies, for relationships. So now when you're going out into the world and you're looking to make a family, in your mind, a family is just you and your kid, because you didn't really have the example of, oh, okay, it really does. Men are valuable. Men can really teach things. Men can do things that I can't do. So, again, my takeaway is for women to realize this. Don't beat yourself up if you were handed the tray you were handed, but just know that you may be coming into the market at a disadvantage, which means you need to move differently and you need to be mindful that you're competing with someone else who may have been set up for success, and it's not your fault, but it definitely is your decisions from here moving forward to course correct that. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And one of the beautiful things about life is that you still have time to course correct. You are going through life looking at things. What worked for me now? What can work for it now? What will it work for me in the future? So again, yeah, there's no reason to beat yourself up, but it's time to start saying, okay, so now I need to go a different way because what I've done before hasn't worked.
I want to take a moment and see what you all are saying in the chat. But Lucy and I just finished a session with the finishing school, and one of our students kind of had a self-reflective moment where she said, you know what, I just got to be kind to myself that I'm at this point in my life, whatever that point is, and I'm just now, getting this information. And I said, well, again, it's not about beating ourselves up, but this accountability and this awareness, ladies, this is the only way we're going to fix it and move forward. Because what I told her, which I'll tell you all, this is what keeps a lot of modern women stuck, thinking there's nothing wrong with me. I'm a 10. I'm fine. Everything's good. I've had someone tell me you do not need both parents. All you need is one. All right. So as long as you think that there's nothing wrong with who you are, where you come from, then you're not going to be looking for a change because there's nothing to change. And that's why we have women 10, 20, 30, 40 years in the dating market, starting over time and time again. But the moment that you realize, okay, my best decisions have gotten me here. And if I like what here is, then keep doing more of that. But if I don't like where here is today and every day moving forward, I need to be working actively to change that. All right. Irving said, I had a colleague and all of her vibes she was chasing led to unhealthy outcomes. Yeah, we've seen it. I have coached women and I'm like, he's not a husband. He's not marriage material, but they just can't let go. They just something about him. Okay, that's your choice. Jurgen's here. We know how you feel about single moms. Hello, Killis is here, watching from the clouds. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, absolutely. And that was just my example. But ladies, whether intentionally or not, you're going to hear and you're going to see things that can shape you unless you actively swim against the grain, right? That's what the young people call it. Oh, it's a vibe. And I'm like, no, it's not. Marriage is not about a vibe because your vibe is going to change. Feelings go up and down. Some days you're not going to like each other, but are you built for relationship and commitment? Because this is why I say the professional daters, they end up almost always alone. Kevin Samuels used to talk about relationships like a muscle. And if you don't learn how to work with somebody over time, when times get hard, you're ready to bounce. All right. So let's go back in. I'm going to fast forward over his commercial, but Lucy and I have both read Dr. Orion's audiobook. It is a pretty intense read, but highly, highly recommended. All right.
Of course, is that not everybody was raised in stable, loving, and intact households. But these people, like the securely attached folks, also have relationship templates and attendant signal detection software. And this means that they're liable to experience intense attraction not to people with whom they can have stable, loving, long-term relationships, but to people who unconsciously remind them of whatever form of chaos or dysfunction they observed as children. And pursuing relationships with these people typically leads to painful and ill-fated reenactments of the original dysfunction. These relationships don't work, though they are all functioning precisely as they were designed to do.
All right, that's a little bit hard to hear, but let's talk about that. So he says, for the people that are with the imprint of a healthy relationship, those of us, by no fault or work that we did, came up in a loving, intact family. We're going to go out into the world looking to reproduce that. And we are going to pair up with people who want the same thing, demonstrate the same thing, and then we're going to be out of the dating market. And I remember, I think in the last podcast interview, I said something about the good ones don't stay single for long. That's on both sides, ladies, because if you are, set up for success and you meet a man that's set up for success and you all like each other enough to work this thing out, you go off and live your life. What this makes me think of painfully, ladies, the ones who are howling at the moon, where are all the good men? There's no good men. And I tell you, you need to stop saying that. You need to stop saying that out loud, because you think you are discounting the pool of men that you see. But what you're really doing is announcing to the world something about you is broken, because you are unable to pair up and move on to the sunset. And I'm not trying to be mean, but did you hear him when he said, if you have that incorrect template, you're going to feel that spark for somebody who can't provide for you, for someone who has no interest for you long term, and you're going to keep doing it over and over and over again. So be careful if your initial reactions has led you down the wrong path. Just know that's how you're wired, and you're going to have to correct that within yourself, because announcing that there's no good men and there's a reason why I'm single and all of that, those of us who don't have those challenges are like, don't know what to tell you. What would you add, Lucy?
And sadly, for all these women, they are advertising their dysfunction by social media. Social media, even though these women think that it gives them some kind of additional revenue, it also gives additional knowledge to those watching, saying, oh, this person is, there's something wrong with this person. So again, young ladies, the reason that some men ask you, do you have any kind of social media, is because they're looking at, do I want to venture into this relationship with this person that is announcing every bit of her, emotional chaos on a line? Or, is she a pretty stable person that really doesn't require all that validation from external sources?
All right, let's see what Irving is saying here. When I dated women who yelled, "Where are the good men?" they weren't a good fit for me. It's not worth the emotional or financial investment. So I always like to use myself as an example. Ladies, what would you think of me if I said, oh my God, where are the men with good hygiene? Like, everybody that I meet is just disgusting. They don't take baths. They don't brush their teeth. What is wrong with them? If I said that, what would you think of me? Dang, Maggie, what is it about you that all the men that you're around don't take care of themselves? It wouldn't make you think less about the men. It would make you think less about me. So I'm trying to help you all. Even if you're trying to process your own frustrations, be very careful announcing to the world that the good men that are out here want nothing to do with you. All right, let us continue.
In any case, blindly following one's emotional reactions is a surefire way to end up brokenhearted or burnt out in the dating market. But that's only because these folks weren't able to resist the impulse to approach embedded in their feelings, which granted is a very hard thing to do. Think about it. These people's templates are actually just as reliable as the securely attached folks. Why? Because they're consistently wrong. Any compass that is consistent, no matter where it believes north to be, is a functional compass. Like, a compass that points exactly south when it should be pointing north is just as useful as a compass that accurately points north. You just have to move in the opposite direction of where it tells you should go. A compass that is consistently incorrect is a reliable tool, as long as you can remember to consistently correct for its inaccuracy. This means that the decision to follow the spark must be approached on a case-by-case basis.
All right, so let's talk about this one as he navigates us through the stars. But let me first say thank you so much to Swab D for the $10. He says, "Good afternoon, beauties. Thank you for the support and thank you kindly for the compliment." All right, ladies. Again, it's kind of painful to talk about, but it's true. So he said that we have this template. So all of us have some type of compass that is looking for the North Star. All right, what is the North Star? But he said that if your compass is leading you towards the wrong outcome or the outcome that you don't want, then you are going to have to intentionally go against the compass. And he said it's hard to do. I'll use myself as an example. I may think I'm great. I may think all my ideas are great. Everything I want to do is great. Everywhere I want to go is great. And I would love for someone to be my number one fan and say, "Maggie, that is wonderful. Let's do it." Is that good for me? No. I have learned the hard way that I need someone to say, "We're not doing that. You're not going there. No." And in the beginning, I was like, "Oh my gosh, who is he talking to? Does he know who I am?" These are the things that I said in my inside voice. But because I had enough sense to realize that a man who cares for you will correct you and not let you spread yourself too thin and just be everything to everybody, I had to realize, okay, even though my compass, even though my North Star, even though I wanted so bad to do this thing or go this place or say yes to this, I'm going to have to train myself to go against my compass because my natural impulse is everything is great. Everything is awesome. Tell me you're a boy mom without saying you're a boy mom, okay? So you have to know that. Ask yourself, what is your compass? What is your North Star? What is your template telling you to do? And know that it's going to be hard. It's not okay. Ladies, once you have this information, it's not going to be enough to say, "Ooh, I just have a thing for these kind of guys." And, "Ooh, I just couldn't say no." You're going to have to train yourself like any other muscle, or you're just going to continue to stay stuck. All right. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And at that point, when you hear somebody saying, "Well, this is, what I look for and this is what I choose to do," then you leave those people alone because people are going to do what they're going to do. And if they're not willing to change that direction, that broken compass to go against it and redirect, there's no fixing that person. There is nothing to do but say, "God bless you. May the best life finds you," and then you move away. Because again, those people that bring chaos to their lives that have chosen to do that, they're also going to try to involve you in their chaos. That's where you say, "You know what? It stops here. You go on your own way. May the best wishes go with you," and then you go away. Because again, you don't want to be around chaos like that because it tends to draw you in their own chaos, and really you don't want to be part of that.
I was thinking about the benediction song, "God be with you till we meet again." Sometimes you just got to let people go be great. All right, let's go back in.
Every person should critically examine his or her parents' relationship and ask themselves, do I want the same thing? If so, you're probably securely attached, and you might be able to put more faith in your feelings, though, as I discuss in my book, this should only be one of many data points when selecting for a long-term relationship. And if you don't want what your parents have, you might need to use your feelings to guide you, at least for a time, where you shouldn't go. Correct for its inaccuracy and seek to heal the underlying attachment wound. Attachment can change. Do this, and you can increasingly follow the behavioral impulses embedded in your emotions, which makes everything a whole lot easier and a lot more enjoyable. Trust me. In the context of this metaphor, It's the folks with a disorganized attachment style who really suffer. Why? Because not only is their compass wrong, it's inconsistently wrong. And a compass that is inconsistently wrong is useless at best and a terrible, terrible liability at worst.
Okay, I just want to talk about this one a little bit. So for those of you who your hardwiring, your template, your compass has led you down the path that you're like, how did I get here? Okay, so step number one, we have to be aware and acknowledge that this exists. Again, this is not about beating ourselves up, but once we know this, what he just said is you can train yourself to go against that impulse. I'll use myself as an example. If I want to have a 5-course meal, but the clothes are telling me I need a 1-course meal, it's going to be hard. And I may not want to say no to all these other things. But ladies, if you know that the guy that does it for you, that thrill that, you get, the danger of the unknown, because he's unstable and you never know what's going to happen from one moment to the next, you're going to have to acknowledge, okay, I feel that way. I want to go home with him. I absolutely want it like my last breath. But you're going to have to say, but I need to do the opposite of that. I need to tell myself no. I need to tell myself, and ladies, honestly, if this is too hard for you, if you have to give in to every impulse, if you have to give in to every emotion, I'm not telling you not to feel them. Dr. Taraban is saying you're going to feel it. You need to know that that hunger pang is going to come, but you have to be prepared for that and say, okay, my impulses are not helping me yet, so I need to do the opposite of that. And then over time, you will find beauty in denying yourself in the beginning if those outcomes were not good for you. But just know, if you are led by your emotions, I think Jurgen said it's like some type of vehicle or whatever, you're going to be all over the place. So sometimes when we see these, I'll say it, 40, 50, 60-year-old women who are still out here moving like a 20-year-old, who are still kind of like trying to be in the club and suck it all in, and get work done and do whatever you want to your body. And you look at them and you're like, you should be settled by now. Like, you should have gotten that out of your system. They couldn't say no to the impulse. And that's where you will be if you don't learn to recognize that it's there. And if it's not helping you, go against it. What would you add, Lucy?
And I also think that there's a point in somebody's life that if you aren't able to be consistently putting those impulses aside and making sacrifices, then unfortunately, that's who you are. And there's no changing. If you choose not to hold on those impulses, nobody else can do anything for you. And unfortunately, we do see that a lot in the modern world. People are doing whatever they want to do. And then we see a society that is becoming incredibly unsustainable and destructive as well.
Absolutely. And, I like to say I don't like to speak for men. Oh, thank you so much, Irving, for the €5. We appreciate you so much. He says, a woman's relationship with a man will challenge if all her feelings are correct or not. A woman who can only experience that in an actual relationship. Thank you for sharing that. I will just say this, ladies, and I never speak for men because I haven't had the male experience, but most men will tell you some version of the same story. The kind of men that we want, the men who have a lot of options, they will tell you that if they could have it their way, it would probably be a catalog of, let's just call them Instagram models or whatever their thing is. But usually they have their fun, get that out of their system, and they know that those type of women don't make good wives. They know that those attention-seeking kind of women aren't going to have the family as the primary. It's going to be all about them. And so they intentionally will choose someone that maybe is a little bit happily average or more modest to build a life with. And then people are like, oh, I didn't see that, or why did he pick her? Because successful people, men and women, have learned to retrain and rewire their natural impulses to get the outcome that they want. All right, let's go back in.
These folks might have to completely disregard their emotional responses, which is a really tough row to hoe. In any case, this is one way to think about the spark. Whether or not you should include it among your criteria for a potential partner really depends on your particular relationship template, which you can approach by critically examining your parents' relationship. And remember, the season you plant is never the season you harvest. Real affection takes time. So unless you're just looking for an exciting fling, no judgment, I wouldn't recommend prioritizing this experience, even in the best case scenario. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. And please send this episode to someone who you think might benefit from its message. I know you know someone who needs to hear this.
All right, we all needed to hear it. So, like he said, ladies, you have to ask yourself, what do I really want out of this? I don't think you need any kind of phase or hot girl summer, because unfortunately for us, that hot girl summer can turn into a hot girl decade just like that. And then you have just crystallized into, ooh, he does it for me. And you go down that path and then got to pick yourself back up again. So he said, unless you want a fling, I would minimize the hold and the effect that the spark has on you. So acknowledge that it's there, but allow yourself to really build a relationship, because like he said, true affection. And I would argue that if all you have experienced is a spark and a collection of sparks, you have no idea what real affection is, what real love is, what real commitment is, what the genuine tenderness and the simple moments. I mean, you can do all the fun things, but when you have had that true affection, I don't think you would trade that for a spark. So like you said, look at your parents' relationship, look at your own upbringing. You don't have to tell anybody, but just ask yourself, okay, was I set up for success or not? Fine. That's just the hand that you were dealt. Knowing that, okay, what is my template and my compass driving me towards? Is that helping me or not? Ask yourself. You don't have to tell anybody. And then if you need to course correct, am I willing and am I able to deny myself the thing that I genuinely want, but it's not good for me, in order to get the outcome that I want? So when I'm Maggie and Lucy's age, you can have the love of your life over many, many years. What would you say, Lucy?
Yes, and this thing about what is it, hot girl summer? That concept is such a destructive way of teaching our young women to keep their dignity. I think the modern world has taught these young women that they're supposed to act like they have 100% testosterone and not be able to say, you know what, no, I want to hold off on giving something precious of me for the right person. You don't have to be going out and be intimate with everyone and anyone. You have to be very selective about the person that you decide to give yourself to, because we are not wired the same as men. Men can have it, can have at it, and then from one second to the other, they'll say, oh, okay, thank you very much, I'm out. They're wired differently. We are wired that once we have that connection, that intimate connection, we want to, cuddle, and we want to be with that person, and we want to we start making a life happily ever after that immediate intimacy moment. Whereas the men will have one leg out going, I'm done with it and I'm out. And we're creating that story in our heads that, he's our prince, that he's going to take us to our castle and create that beautiful life. It doesn't work that way, ladies. And I don't know how you've been duped. Thank God I was not part of that duping of that modern world, because I never saw it that way. But I do see it in the younger generations, how they are okay of giving themselves to any person that whispers sweet things in their ears without having their family vetting them, without having your, uncles, your dad, your brother looking at that person saying, you know what, this is a person that, it has attachment issues. And you may want to be careful, because that's the person that's not going to be a long-standing relationship for you.
Let me say again, thank you to Suave D coming through with the $5. We appreciate it. Well, since we're here now, let's talk about intimacy and what happens after. I laugh and I get a little bit, uh, what's the word? A little bit shy, but honestly, to be helpful, ladies. So Lucy talked about what happens after you've been intimate with someone. Ladies, you can ask yourself, the truth is, when we are with a man, afterwards, more often than not, we do want to hold on. We want to cuddle. We are imagining this becoming a thing, if it isn't already. We are planning for the future. We are in the afterglow, and it's just like, this is wonderful. Per Lucy's depiction, and you all have heard it, there's a term for it. I'm going to not recite it here, but men are very different. After the act, like Lucy said, one leg out, like they're putting the pants on, they're getting dressed, they're ready to go conquer the day. So if you have not established that this is a real relationship or you're married, in your mind, this is going somewhere. In his mind, this was just recreational activity. And you're never going to be able to put the cart before the horse and think that your acrobatic skills can have him take you seriously as as a wife or as a life partner. This is where and I know Jurgen was in here talking about feminism, but this is why I'm always howling at the moon about we are not equal. We are not equal at all. Women have a hard wiring to want to connect. Men have a hard wiring to want to conquer. It just is what it is. Argue if you want to. I do not care. But what happens is when we start saying there's no male and there's no female and we're all just persons or whatever it was, and we're interchangeable, it denies our natural biology. And the harm in it for me, like Lucy said, young women think I can do it too. There's a song, I can do it like a dude. I can move like a man. Okay, can you do the act? Yes. 10 times and more on Sunday. You can do the act, but you know that you are not built for that transaction after transaction after transaction. That's where a lot of women just kind of crack. And then, finally it's like, okay, I want someone to take me seriously. So we're trying to help those before you go down that path and say, okay, my behavior and my impulse is leading me towards something that's not long lasting. So I need to deny that. I promise you, you can have all the fun that you want to. And it's so much better when the act is part of a real relationship and a real commitment. And he wants to be there afterwards, not just, as Lucy says, leg out and on to the next thing. Would you add anything else, Lucy?
No, and I get Sam's comment here. Men can jump from bed to bed without attachment, but most of us don't really want that. Most of us want a family. Yes, the good men do want a family, but I think it's kind of it's a maturity factor. Some men take some time to get to the mature stage where they do want to look at that woman and say, yeah, that's the one I think could be the mother to my children. And it takes a lot for a man to say, yeah, that's the one, because they've been watching you for some time to make sure that that's the one that's going to be part of that leadership in that environment. So yeah, I do see a lot of men. Most men do want a family, but they also want to make the family with the right woman.
I 100% agree. Most of us want a family. And ladies, you've heard me say it. Men are the ones that initiate relationships. So the family is going to come in their time, on their terms. I always say we can accept with grace or we can exit with grace, but you're not going to be able to just hook him down and say, okay, we go together now. That's not how it works. So once a man has had his fun, and that's different for most men because they know the responsibility of wanting a family. Men don't believe they can just wish upon a star and make it happen. They have to know that they have to come to a woman who is serious with a serious offer and demonstrate to her, this is how I can take care of the family that I'm asking for. That's not our role. That is their role. I also want to say again, thank you so much, Irving, for the €5. Thank you, so generous. He says, Lucy is right. You can't want chivalry and to be swept off your feet, but have a history of trying to play a role that doesn't fit your nature. Yes, ladies, you can do whatever you want to do for as long as you want to do it. Lucy has said, some people you just have to leave alone. And it breaks my heart to admit this, but some people really just are broken. But for those that are just marching down what they think, okay, this is the way to get a man, we're trying to help those, especially in their prime years. Because when you build up a track record of just being, an exchange of time, then when you tire of that, because you will tire of that. And if you don't believe me, find me the 40, 50, and 60-year-old women who are still enjoying running around outside like maybe they did in their youth. In my experience, those are some of the loudest ones now demanding marriage, now saying you got to take me seriously, now saying I want this kind of man. Unfortunately for them, it's too late because they spent their best years doing whatever they wanted to do with whatever they wanted, whoever they wanted to do it with. And they weren't willing to say no to being flued out or no to a $400 dinner with somebody you don't really know that well, or no to the gifts and being swept off your feet when your desire and your template is saying, oh yes, I'm the princess and I should be showered. This is what I've been waiting for all my life. They weren't either able or willing to say, what does he want for this? He can't just be giving me this out of the goodness of his heart. What is this going to cost me? So that's why I'm saying, ladies, really look at what you have been driven to and know that it's going to be hard in the beginning, but you can retrain your compass, or at least say, yep, I know I like it, but I cannot have that. I cannot have that. It will hurt me. All right. All right. I think that's it. Thank you all so much for being here. Irving says, they say men are emotionally unavailable, but it's not what a lot of men see. We just don't call it out. We just avoid it and not pour into that person. Some may entertain it, but nothing more. Yes. So ladies, we talked about that. Men will spend time with you knowing that it's not going anywhere. Yeah. Men don't want men or masculine women. And Bria says, that's right. Spending our best years not being intentional is not a wise decision. So yeah, you don't have to listen to us. Find the women in your area that you interact, that are me and Lucy's age, and ask them or listen to them. Maybe they have some regrets about, I wish I would have taken such and such seriously because I'm tired of these 60-hour work weeks or whatever it is that they're doing. All right. What would you say to close this out, Lucy?
This was a good one. I think I have a really good one for next weekend. So are we going to be available next weekend, Maggie? I think so, right? I don't know.
Yes, we will be available next weekend, but the weekend after that, I will be going to see somebody graduate from something very important. So if you all know, you know. But yeah, we'll be here next Saturday.
All right. I think this was a great stream. Thank you all for your generous contributions, your comments. As always, this is what makes these live streams just so precious and enjoyable, to see your perspectives, men's perspectives, women's perspectives, and how we all come together and hopefully create a society that's improving rather than going the other way.
Absolutely. Thank you again to Irving and Suave D for the generous contribution. We will be back next week, Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, for more content. And so until then, we will say
Adios.